Welcome to the Home Stagers and Designers on Fire podcast, where we help you attract more ideal clients, up-level your business, make more money, and still have a smokin' hot life. Hosted by best-selling author, coach, and speaker Marianne Cherico, this podcast focuses on business and mindset strategies that enable you to create a life and business by design. Now, let's get fired up.
Hey there, and welcome back to the podcast. I'm excited to talk to you about today's topic because I believe that it's so needed in the home staging industry. And it's my personal mission to elevate home stagers so that they not only see their value, they're able to articulate it to their ideal clients so that they win business and get paid what they're truly worth. Every time I hear a home stager feeling as though she has to win a job by being the lowest priced stager, I wince. It really breaks my heart. Think about this. Do top real estate agents win listings by offering the lowest commission? No. In fact, many of the top producers charge more money and give more value. They pay for things that others don't, like staging consultations, video, and photos of their listings. Some even pay for more things like floor plans and Title V. And because their brand is elevated, their listings look great online and stand out. Their marketing is top notch. They present themselves well. They offer great client experience, and clients happily pay more for that in commission because of the perceived value that they get when they work with that agent. Here's the truth that we aren't talking about enough in the staging world. Many home stagers are struggling financially, not because they're bad at staging, but because they don't know their numbers well enough to make sure that they're being profitable. And also because of what's happening in their heads before they even send out that proposal. Here's something I want you to think about. Before you ever even sit down to write that proposal, before you type in a single number, there's already a conversation that's happening in your head. It's not with your client, it's with yourself. And for a lot of home stagers, that conversation sounds something like this. I don't want to scare them off. I really need this job. Other stagers in my area charge less. They won't hire me if I don't make a proposal that's the cheapest. I'm still building my portfolio, so maybe I should just do this one cheap. If I charge what I'm really worth, they're going to say no. Does any of this sound familiar? These aren't random thoughts. These are money stories. They're beliefs about what you think you deserve, what money means to you, and what happens when you ask for it. Some of these stories are deeply rooted beliefs that are subconscious, and most of them were written before you even started your business. They come from how you grew up watching money being talked about or not talked about in your home. They come from being told not to be too much. They come from a culture where women are systemically paid less. And I know that there's men listening to this podcast, but I'm speaking to the women because most of the home stagers, the higher percentage are women. And the culture has ingrained in women a thought that they're devalued for what they do. Many of us women were never taught to confidently own our value. We were taught to be nice and accommodating and grateful and not ask for too much. We were praised for being the helpers, the caretakers, the cheerleaders, the people pleasers, not necessarily for being powerful earners. And whether we realize it or not, these messages become subconscious money stories that follow us into business. They show up when we hesitate to raise our prices, when we over deliver to prove our worth, when we discount our services before anyone even asks, or feel uncomfortable talking about money altogether. As home stagers, we can end up creating beautiful transformations that net sellers a lot of money while undervaluing our own transformation, what we've created, the results that we've created. But here's what I want you to hear. These money stories are learned, not truths. They're through the lens through which we see money. and all of its ramifications. And when you start recognizing them, you can stop making business decisions from guilt or fear or conditioning, indoctrination, and start leading like the confident CEO of your business. Now, there are many money stories that we hold, often subconsciously, and these money stories sabotage your profitability. Today, I'm going to talk about money stories and how they're the invisible force running your profitability. I'm also going to talk about why knowing your numbers is the unsexy superpower that changes everything, and how to compete on value instead of price. So you stop racing to the bottom and start building a business that actually pays you and feels good. And at the end of this episode, I'm going to tell you about a program that I'm going to be launching. I've been working very hard on it and how you can get on the wait list. This program is called the Confident and Profitable Home Stager, and it's being created specifically for stagers like you who want to price confidently and win business that feels good. I want you to work with clients who happily pay your fees because they see the incredible value that you bring. So stay with me. All right, let's dive in. Here are just a couple of money stories that I see in home stagers. Story number one, I have to earn the right to charge more. This is a subconscious thought that might be playing in the background. This one shows up as perpetual discounting. There's always a reason it's not quite the right time to raise your prices. You need one more certification, one more validation, one more big project, one more testimonial. But here's the truth. The bar keeps moving because the story isn't really about qualifications. It's about your worthiness. And worthiness isn't something you accumulate, it's something you decide. You decide it based on the value that you bring, and you create a case around it. You look at statistics that prove how staging increases the value of a home. You cultivate your own stats. If you don't have your own stats, because you're just beginning, you use the stats of the National Association of Realtors or other organizations. You write down ways you go the extra mile. Maybe it's promoting on social. You are really great at promoting your clients' listings on social or offering top notch client experience like no other, or your signature style, or your packaged services that make things easier for your clients. Like maybe you offer photography with the staging and you package that all together. You remind yourself that you're maximizing the equity for every single seller that you work with, and you're elevating the brand of every single real estate agent that hires you. And that's a really big deal. That's huge value. Here's another money story that you might be thinking. Someone else is going to do it cheaper, so I have to at least match them. Now, this is a scarcity story, and it keeps stagers in a race to the bottom that nobody wins. Yes, there's always going to be someone willing to charge less. There's always going to be someone just starting out, someone desperate for work, someone who hasn't realized that they're paying to work, but you're not in competition with those people. And you don't have to be. Take yourself out of that competition. Just like there will always be agents who will work for less in order to win listings, there will always be stagers who do that as well. And it's up to you to offer value that people are willing to pay for. There are a lot of money stories that people hold in the business world. I heard one story about someone who didn't want to charge what she was worth because she thought that she wouldn't pay her own prices because she was frugal. And I had to laugh. I had to help this wonderful human being see that it's actually good to pay for value and results, and that the exchange of money for value should be commensurate with the results that you get. And it's good to pay for good value. People pay more for better value. And sometimes the value is perceived. Think expensive handbags. It doesn't take a ton of money to make these handbags, but the brand value causes the bags to command more money. And that's why it's important to build out your brand and the value that you bring. Now, I'd like you to hit pause for a moment with this episode and ask yourself these two questions. You could actually write them down, and I want you to take a few minutes to answer these questions and really think about the answers. I want you to fill in the blanks. I feel uncomfortable charging more because. I feel uncomfortable charging more because. And the second fill in the blanks is raising my prices would mean what? This is very telling. And then I want you to poke holes with anything that doesn't empower you to be profitable. I want you to poke holes in the lens through which you're seeing this. Read your answers back because those answers are the operating system that your business is running on right now. This is really great intel. Now, I want you to ask yourself how an empowered, confident CEO would answer these same questions. How would this empowered, confident CEO respond to these questions? That's the persona that you want to run your business by. This shift in perspective helps you run your business through a different lens, a more empowered lens. A lot of what we do in coaching is to help you to do this, to show up from that powerful CEO that you all have within you. My old coach used to call it your inner business expert. It really knows what you should be doing. It's our sabotaging voice in our head that tells us why we can't do, be, or have what we want that disempowers us. Now, let's talk about the unsexy superpower of being profitable, and that's knowing your numbers. Let me tell you about a type of stager I see all the time, booked out and broke. She's busy, like really busy. She's got projects lined up. Her Instagram looks incredible. Her clients love her. She's saying yes to nearly everything because she has to. Because despite how much she's working, there's never quite enough left over at the end of the month. She posts in a staging Facebook group asking for advice, and someone says, "You need to raise your prices." And she thinks, "But I'm already more expensive than some people in my market." The problem isn't her prices in isolation. The problem is she's absolutely got no idea what it actually costs her to run her business. She's been pricing based on what feels reasonable, what competitors seem to charge, and what she thinks she can get. And those three things have nothing to do with profitability. Let's talk about what knowing your numbers actually means. I'm not talking about running complicated spreadsheets. I'm talking about the foundational basics that every stager needs to understand before they send a single proposal. And it doesn't have to be difficult. For one thing, you have to know what the cost of doing every single job is. What does this project actually cost you? What's the direct cost associated with delivering your staging service to that client for a specific project? Think of it as everything directly tied to fulfilling a stage, not the overhead of running a business. Think about the labor, including your own time. I want you to put in a dollar figure with an hourly rate, which is not zero. Too many stagers don't charge for their labor. And they dramatically underestimate this because they forget to pay themselves for their time. So you want to include your hourly rate for your labor, any rentals, furniture rentals, working with a furniture rental company or whatnot, anything you have to purchase in order to facilitate that job, the mileage on your car, what that would cost. And if you're hiring a truck, what that would be, movers, packing materials, assistants, anything that it takes to facilitate that job. I want you to write that down. Also, obviously, what you're renting the furniture for. You should almost think of that separately because if you own furniture, you want to amortize what that would be per month per item of furniture, which is a whole other conversation. But you want to make sure that you're charging for the rental of your furniture. And then any other out of pocket expenses, like if you're doing a photo shoot for the client or something like that, fresh flowers, styling supplies, and whatnot. And I think I already said movers and your loading team. Add that all up. assistance, payroll taxes, if it's you're hiring staging labor, fuel. Now, these are basically cost of goods sold, what it costs to do that particular staging job. So you've got to know what it actually costs for you to do the job. And then you want to know your operating expenses, your overhead to keep your business open, right? And this is not a full list, but things like marketing, website, coaching, education, training, software subscriptions, bookkeeping, warehouse, storage, your salary as the CEO or owner, unless you have a really boutiquey business and you're paying yourself as labor and you're paying yourself handsomely as labor. Administrative staff or VA, storage or warehouse rental, utilities, phone, anything that's associated with the running of your business. This is your fixed overhead. You want to add it up, and then you want to divide that by the number of projects that you do per month. And then each project that you do, you should charge for that piece extra in overhead. So, in other words, if you do, let's just say you do 4 projects a month and your overhead is, just to keep the numbers easy and the math easy, $1,000 a month. Maybe you're really boutique and you don't have a lot of overhead and you work out of your home. Then you know that $250 for each job, 250 times 4 is 1,000, would have to be added to each job to pay for your overhead. Okay, so you're adding up your cost of goods sold, what it takes to do the job, and then you're putting in your overhead so that the client on that job pays for that. Now, before you can be profitable, you have to at least know what your break even number is. Like, what is your break even number? How much do you need to bring in every month just to keep the lights on? What do you have to make every month just to keep the lights on? So that means, knowing really, really detailed what your overhead is just to stay in business. This number is very clarifying and often uncomfortable, but once you know it, you can build towards something beyond it. Now, let's talk about home staging profit margins. It's hard to come up with one ideal profit margin in staging. I mean, I've chat GPT'd it, I've Claude AI it, I've Googled it. And basically, what you have to know about profit margins is that they vary widely depending on your business, the size of your business model, and stage of growth. So, for instance, someone who has a boutique staging business with very, very, very low overhead. Maybe they're working out of their home and their inventory is housed in their garage. Their profit margin is going to be a lot higher because they don't, especially their net profit margin. You have gross profit margin, which is what you make, the revenue, but net profit margin is what you net after expenses. So you want the net to be high because you could have a great gross profit margin, but technically, if your net is low, if you have large expenses, then you have to weigh in on that. And this helps you look at what you need to improve in your business. So let's say that the boutique owner, the one with the very lean overhead, is going to have a higher profit margin because she doesn't have a lot of expenses. So she's going to keep more money in her pocket. The same thing with a consultation based business. They would have a very high profit margin because there's not a lot of overhead. Now, the profit margin is going to be a lot less for a company with a large team. There's a lot more overhead to run a team and a warehouse and operating expenses that go along with a bigger business. So you have to think in terms of, with a bigger business, you're going to have more jobs. You're going to be doing more jobs because you have a bigger team and a bigger capacity. But your profit margin, because of your operating expenses, is typically going to be lower. Okay. So you want to think about that and you want to gauge what your profit margin is. So you can have a high profit margin for doing a job, right? Where you make a lot of money, but a low net profit margin when you take out the operating costs. You want to be very well aware of what you're netting. There is a simple formula to figure out your profit margin. You want to figure out what you charge for the job, and this what you charge for the job, what the expenses were, and then you want to divide into the expenses what you charge for the job and then multiply it times 100. So, for instance, if you charge $4,000 for a job and you spent $2,200 in expenses, you would do 2,200 divided by 4,000, and then you would take that amount and times it by 100. That would give you like a 55% profit margin. So you would take the number of what your expenses were on a job divided by what you made on the job, and that would give you a number. And then you multiply that times 100, and that would give you your profit margin. So here's another little exercise and another different way that you can look at money. This is the gut punch math exercise. Take your last 5 jobs, and for each one, I want you to calculate the total hours that you spent, including, if you did a consultation because it was a vacant and you didn't charge for it because it didn't take that long, and you bake it into your price for vacants. I never recommend this for occupieds. You always get paid with a consultation to start an occupied. But let's say it's a vacant, you just do kind of a go see. You want to take your total hours spent, the go see, the prep time, pulling inventory, staging setup, staging takedown, drive time, all the texts and emails, anything that has to do with that job. Calculate your total hours spent. And then add all your hard costs for that job, the labor, the delivery, etc., and subtract costs from that invoice. And then divide the remaining dollars by total hours. That number is your effective hourly rate. And this only accounts for billable hours. It doesn't take into consideration the countless hours you spent on sourcing, marketing, networking, bookkeeping, and all the things that it takes to build a business. This number also needs to address what the operating expenses are for the business, because each job has to have a portion of those monthly expenses baked in. And then the question becomes, is that the rate you want to run a business at? Now, this isn't about shame. It's about seeing clearly, because you can't make a decision to change something that you haven't looked at. So the simple fix that isn't about charging more, I know what some of you are thinking. This is just telling me to raise prices, but it's actually not. It's not the only thing that it's telling you. It could be. Maybe you do need to raise prices. Only you know that. Sometimes the issue isn't the price, it's the scope of the work. Maybe you're doing $1,200 projects that take 11 hours because scope creep is real and you've never defined where your service ends. Or you're spending 4 hours on proposals for jobs that you could qualify much faster by a better system. Or you're not considering how your furniture is making money after being paid off, although you also have to allocate funds to replenish that furniture. Profitability is about the whole picture. There's lots of pieces to the puzzle. Revenue minus real costs over time. And once you see that picture, you can actually start to engineer it. Now, let's talk about the comparison trap and why getting answers in staging groups about price only tells part of the picture. Let's say somebody posts, what do you charge for a 2,000 square foot Occupy consultation? And within minutes, there's a ton of responses ranging from $75 to $750. And the stager reading it thinks, okay, then what's normal? But here's the thing about that question. As a business owner, you have to ask yourself the right questions. Ask this question instead, because normal is a race to the average, right? Asking what's normal is a race to the average, and average is not a business strategy. When you compete on price, you're asking the client to evaluate you on the same criteria they'd use to compare 2 identical products on Amazon. You become a commodity, and commodities get chosen based on cost. but you're not a commodity. Your eye, your experience, your unique style, your ability to walk into a house and see it transform before anyone else in the room can, that's a skill. Your relationship with clients during one of the most stressful times of their lives, that's a service. Your track record of results, that's a product with a measurable return on investment. Okay. So I want you to lead with outcomes, not tasks. Don't tell clients you'll rearrange furniture and accessorize and stage. Tell them you specialize in helping sellers achieve faster sales and higher offers. Any price over asking stories you have. That's the conversation that reframes you from an expense to an investment. You're an investment in their equity. With real estate agents, you help them win listings. That makes them thousands of dollars. You elevate their brand. Okay. Another thing to think about is creating tiers of business, not discounts. Instead of lowering your price when someone pushes back, offer a different scope of work, a lighter touch option that protects your margin. I can offer a consultation only package at X, or my full staging service at Y, or partial staging at Z. Here's what each includes. This holds your value while giving the client a real choice. You're not saying no to the client. You're offering them a choice. You're giving them agency to choose how they can work with you. You also want to speak the language of return on investment. A seller putting their home on the market is already spending on real estate commissions and most likely repairs. They have to invest in order to get top dollar. You help them get the most amount of money in any real estate market by the way you present their home to buyers. You're helping them optimize the showing power of their home, often their biggest investment, so that it's marketed and packaged for optimal results. You also want to qualify your clients harder, not just take any warm body. You want to stop convincing people who aren't your ideal clients. Not every seller is your client. Some are genuinely price driven and will always choose the cheapest option. Just bless and release them. That's okay. Spending an hour on the phone trying to convince someone to see your value is an hour you didn't spend marketing it to someone who's already looking for exactly what you offer. Your goal isn't to convince, it's to connect with the right people and let them know how you can help them, and then they will self select. Here's the uncomfortable truth underneath all of this: competing on value requires you to believe in your value, and that belief is not automatic. It has to be built. It's built through tracking your results, raising your prices incrementally, and seeing that people still say yes, getting clear on your story and your process. And honestly, with working through the money stories that we talked about earlier at the top of this episode, the stagers I know who charge the most and work with the best clients aren't always the most talented or the most experienced, but they're the most clear. They're clear on what they offer. They're clear on who they serve. They're clear on what their work is worth. And that clarity, it's transferable. It shows up in your proposals, your consultations, your Instagram captions, your discovery calls. Clients can feel it and they say yes to that. It's magnetizing. And here's where I'm going to be really honest with you. Everything I shared today, the money stories, the numbers, the value conversation, we could talk about any of these for so many hours. And the truth is, knowing this stuff intellectually is only a fraction of the equation. The gap between knowing what to do and actually doing it consistently in your business, that gap, from what I've seen with working with a lot of my coaching clients, is where most stagers get stuck. That gap is exactly what I've built my new upcoming program to close. It's a hands-on, live, very intimate group program that I'm developing called the Confident and Profitable Home Stager. And it's built specifically to help you get out of your own way, charge what you're worth, build a profitable business that's actually financially stable, and show up with the kind of confidence that makes clients say yes before you're done with the proposal. We get down to the nitty gritty, and we'll do it inside a community of stagers who are done playing small. This program isn't open yet, but the wait list is. And if you're on the wait list, you'll be the first to know when doors open. You'll also get early access, and there will be bonuses that are exclusive to founding members. And the wait list, we're only going to have 10 people in this beta program. There's going to be special pricing that you'll never see again. And the people that are on the wait list will be first to know. If today's episode hits close to home, if you've recognized yourself in any of these money stories, or if you did the math on your hourly rate and felt the sting, I want you to know that that feeling is information meant to help you. It means you're seeing things clearly, maybe for the first time, and that's actually the beginning of everything. So if you'd like, share this episode with a stager that you know needs to hear this. I think that, a lot of stagers need to hear this. And since it's my mission to elevate home stagers, this would be a really great thing. If we're all getting paid what we're worth, wouldn't that be amazing? All right, stay tuned for my last episode in this 5-part series on the 5 pillars of a confident and profitable home stager, coming soon. And this one is going to be on fulfillment.
This episode of the Home Stagers and Designers on Fire podcast has ended. Be sure to subscribe for more strategies on how to attract your ideal clients, up-level your business, make more money, and still have a smokin' hot life. And don't forget to review this show so that we can continue to bring you top-notch content. See you on the next episode.